Two cities in two countries make up a huge binational area along the Rio Grande. El Paso, Texas and Juarez, Mexico are sister cities, connected in many ways.
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits of living in this community was the fact that we're right on the border with a major Mexican city. Juarez is one of the largest cities in Mexico, and we're smack on the border with it. We're right next to each other. And we have major ports of entry where you can cross by foot or in vehicle. And so it gave you a great experience, that bi-national experience.
Recent drug cartel violence in Juarez has changed the landscape, but people still cross back and forth all the time, and many of them remember how things used to be.
If you speak to a lot of the individuals in El Paso that are in their 30s, they remember when they were in high school, when they were 14, they could walk across the border, they could get served alcohol, they could get drunk, and then come back across and head home.
Rows of bars used to line the streets of Juarez just across the border, where the legal drinking age is 18.
Even though you could drink legally in Juarez from 18 to 21, we had a lot of underage kids going over there too, because they really didn't care about checking as much as you would here in the U.S., because it's a big deal to serve an underage kid over here in the U.S. But over there, it's really not. So you could have a 16, 15, 14-year-old over there drinking, getting drunk, and it was just a matter of parking their car downtown El Paso and a little walk right across the bridge, and they're in a foreign country where the laws are different and they're able to drink and have fun.
What some saw as a rite of passage concerned the Rio Grande Safe Communities Coalition.
Back there in Friday and Saturday nights, students coming over at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning could be easily up to 2,000 in just that time frame. Drunk, coming across, stumbling, some of them alcohol poisoning as they reached the bridge.
Then they would often get into cars.
We would deal with intoxicated kids. Some of them would get in cars and try to drive home. They'd be DWI, and we've had some pretty bad fatalities.
Options were somewhat limited.
Well, unless we had a law or an ordinance or something on this side of the border, we really couldn't do a whole lot. We couldn't keep the kids from crossing the border. And in Juarez, they made a lot of money selling to kids, so they weren't going to do anything.
The coalition checked with other border cities to see what they had done to try to prevent underage drinking.
We started out, we looked at what they had done in San Diego, and we tried initially to do something, to do a statewide law that would affect all of the border communities. We ran into an obstruction that we couldn't overcome, so we knew we couldn't do anything at a state level, so we started looking at what we might be able to do at a local level.
A curfew seemed like a viable option, and the city of El Paso already had one in place, but it wasn't enough.
So our existing ordinance was, in regards to curfew, that after 11 o'clock, if you were under the age of 17, you couldn't be out. And that was a citywide ordinance. But what we found was that a lot of these kids would go over there before 11 o'clock because they'd want to get there early to get their place where they're going to be hanging out with their friends and drinking.
So the coalition leaders looked at what the city of Austin did on its 6th Street Entertainment District. Teens under 17 were not allowed there after 7 p.m., addressing a specific problem in a specific area.
What we decided to do, or the coalition decided to do, was we need to address the specific areas. Where are they going across? And the 2 locations that they were going across were the 2 bridges that are located in downtown El Paso. And it's at those 2 locations that they were doing it. They would park their cars on this side, go across, get drunk, come back, get in their cars and go home.
The idea was to stop the kids before they went over to Mexico.
That would allow us, instead of having officers out there in regards to enforcement after the kids were drunk, after they'd become victims of crime, after they'd been assaulted, it would allow us to stop them and prevent them from going over, because if they were under that age, we could stop, hold them, turn them over to the parents and cite them. So we were actually preventing things from happening.
Operation Bridge was born, bi-national resources to interrupt the drinking gateway environment. Now, the coalition had to make the city council aware of the problem and their proposed solution.
As a coalition, we're not able to lobby, and so what we do is just educate and bring awareness So we had to have all our facts and figures and say, no, this is something that we're looking at, and this is the issues that we have in our community, safety, concern.
We went to city council meetings. We got kids who went over to Juarez who came before the city council and talked about that. We had parents, we had kids, we had a lot of people come out to city council to get up and talk about the experiences that they had had to prove to the city council that it was a problem.
The ordinance passed in March 2006, and enforcement began in the 2 areas surrounding the bridges on the El Paso side of the border.
Kids that were found that were 17 and under in those areas during those times were held until their parents came and picked them up. And on the first and second offense could get a fine of up to $500. And the parent, if the parent knew that the kid was out at that time in that area, could also be fined.
The media helped publicize the curfew, and so did billboards around the city. The coalition began to see results pretty quickly.
We found a significant curtailment in the number of kids crossing into Juarez, and we saw that the bar owners in Juarez were now commenting about the fact that they were losing business. A great deal of their business came from El Paso, and the comment that business was being lost was a plus for us in essence because we were able to see direct results.
But it's not clear how much of an impact the curfew alone has had. A variety of factors, including the curfew, helped to reduce the number of people going across the border to drink.
At the same time, what was beginning to occur was that increase in violence over in Juarez, and that has had a substantial impact on reducing the number of people that go over there. We don't have those problems at all anymore because it's so dangerous to go over there that the kids won't typically do it. And the violence started picking up in the early part of '07.
New passport regulations are also keeping people on the American side of the border, but they're still finding ways to drink.
The partying moved from Juarez to the deserts of El Paso and have moved to people's homes. They can't go across, so then we're going to go out to the desert and have a party out in the desert. We've also seen a rise in issues involving social hosting, parents providing alcohol to minors in their home, you know, with the kind of the mentality of, well, they're in my home, so, you know, I'm watching over them. And the issue with that, obviously, is that, well, they're drinking in your home and then they get in their cars and they drive back to their house.
The border traffic has changed. It's now mostly people who work and shop in El Paso. By law, the El Paso City Council has to reconsider the curfew every 3 years.